everyone. Welcome to Game Raven's next indie dev review, or I'm sorry, indie dev interview. Today we have some really amazing special guests from Piggy Bank Studios, and they are the developers of Princess Castle Quest. So, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, Taylor, go ahead and start and let us know who you are and what role you have on the Piggy Bank Studios team.
Sure. My name is Taylor Robbins. I'm the primary programmer on Princess Castle Quest. I also am kind of the project lead, I guess, in that way, right? I do a lot of the other tasks that there's no specific person for.
That's important. Absolutely. And Devin?
Hi, yeah, I'm Devin Lawless. You guys are all blessed by not having to see my face. So yeah, I help out on the Princess Castle Quest with kind of a little bit of everything whenever it was needed, but I've taken on the nickname of Idea Guy. So I'm always chatting with Colby and Taylor and some of the other guys on our team about stuff that we could add to the game, maybe things we can improve or change, and these are all new things we could maybe look into. And then I make some of the artwork. I've dabbled in some of the early music, though it's not nearly as good as the actual music we're getting now, and done some of the programming on the side and a ton of level design. So yeah.
Sweet. Well, I am Puppet Master N, or Emily, whichever you prefer. And I am the creator of Game Raven, and I'm joined by Emmy here.
That's me.
That's you. And she is a wonderful streamer and writer and our editor, actually, for the review site. So super happy to have everybody here. Well, Emmy, you have played this game quite a bit. What has been your experience as a streamer going through this game?
Yeah. So I did spend a few hours going through the game, and I was lucky enough to have the Piggy Bank Studios crew there with me to help me through it. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. I think that for somebody like me whose niche isn't necessarily puzzle games, I was still able to go through it and have a really good time. It really helped to have you guys there to help me out. But I think that anybody who is more interested in games like that wouldn't have as much of a problem as I did. But it's good. It makes you think. It stretches your brain. It makes you really take your time with things and guess and check. And there were some points where I definitely missed something super simple. So I think that however they managed to put these levels together, it's beyond me. They were really well done.
It definitely takes a lot of iteration. I think we'll probably go through a decent number of iterations still and before we release proper. But we do kind of try and find a balance where like the main core of the level is more accessible to the larger majority of people that maybe aren't super puzzle game people, maybe you're not super great at controls or timing. And so we do kind of try and cater to an audience larger than you would normally see for most puzzle games, with a bit of discovery and things that you can do besides just straight solving puzzles. And then in order to kind of scratch that itch for people that really are puzzle solvers and find those levels somewhat easier, we have a bunch of optional levels that you can find in every level, or a bunch of optional rooms basically, right, that you can find that often contain the harder levels, right? So you'll, like, the main path might be really easy, but then you walk up a screen and suddenly it's like a really interesting take on the mechanics that you just learned in the easy level, right?
Yeah. And I remember when I was playing through it, you guys saying that I had found one of the harder puzzles just right away as the first one.
Yes.
So that was my introduction to it. What kind of creative process do you have for coming up with the puzzles in the game?
I don't know if there's any one process. It's honestly just a matter of spending enough time with it. I have heard before, one of the ways I thought it was going to work before I started working on this game, I had never made a puzzle game of this size before. And I had always heard like, okay, yeah, if you understand the puzzle mechanics well enough, you should be able to make the levels, right? You could, identify a certain aspect of the puzzle system and then, build a puzzle or build a level around that, right? But I feel like it never really pans out that way. I feel like it's always just a matter of slapping random stuff down, seeing if it's a good puzzle, if it's impossible, if it's way too easy, and then trying to figure out what thing added or removed would actually make it a little bit more possible or a little bit harder. Right. So it often is just doing random things and then trying to go from there to find an actual good puzzle, I think. But then that's just my way. Like a lot of times, I think Kayla, our artist, has made levels before. And a lot of times it's just like start with decoration, right? Start with the room, start with the places that you go first, and then put some stuff inside of it. So it really depends on just however you like to make stuff. But it's always a long process, and it's never super easy. So it takes a lot of work.
Gotcha. And then you mentioned your artist. Do you kind of want to go through and introduce the other members of your team and what
Yeah,
they
do you
do
wanna do
that
that?
aren't with us right now?
Yeah, so we have 3 other people besides me and Devin. We have Kayla, who's done a lot of the artwork for the cutscenes, and nowadays has done a decent amount of the artwork for the actual gameplay. It originally was just me and Devin and Kyle making artwork for the gameplay stuff. So a lot of the stuff is kind of programmer art turned into semi-viable art. But then we also have Kyle, who's also my uncle, and he makes a lot of levels. He's often the one that comes with the most interesting combinations of mechanics. Like, oh, what if you use these two things together? So he makes a lot of levels, tests a lot of levels. And then we have a new person, Sam, who's been doing music for us. And we're really excited because the music we have in the trailer right now is actually from a previous composer we have, which is pretty good. But we're excited to make a bunch of new music and kind of get the audio of the game kind of revamped. So we're really excited to have him on board.
All right. That all sounds good to me as long as you don't replace the sound of you walking on grass and the sound opening the chest, because it gives so much character. For anybody watching who hasn't seen me play it yet, a lot of the sound effects are just voice noises, and they're adorable.
Yeah, so the voice sounds are a funny phenomenon. So what happened was I needed to get a bunch of sound effects in the game, and I started trying to write lists of what we needed, right? Like trying to write a list of all the sound effects you need for a game. In a puzzle game especially, where there's a bunch of unique interactions that happen, is surprisingly hard, right? It's never a complete list. And so I needed to start actually getting audio in the game that I could actually test and see if it sounded full enough. Like the idea of like, am I going too long without any audio, right? Or some of these things, when I do them, do they feel like they should have audio on them, right? So I had to have some amount of audio without actually having the ability to create good audio and not like a massive number of options that really seem to fit the game style very well. So I ended up just putting in what I thought was just going to be developer sounds. And I just said, okay, I'm just going to do a bunch of voice sounds and just put in placeholders that are kind of similar to what I want them to be. Some of those are gone now. Some of them are replaced with better sounds, but I think there are a certain few, like the chest opening sound, that they're really funny. Like I didn't think they were that funny until we had people playing them and they're like, these are great. And I'm like, are they?
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting process. We probably will keep those around, or at the very least, we might have the option to switch over to an entire automatopoeia version of the sound effects, or back to the regular ones or something like that, right?
Yeah. So. Well, I can tell you I will definitely be using that if it's an option. I was dying over how fantastic those were.
It's funny, you often hear like sound effects in a game and you'll try and like reproduce them with your mouth, right? And you're like, oh, that's not exactly right. But if you ever make the sound effects for your game and they get ingrained in your head and then they're kind of catchy and you try and make the sound, it's like, that is me. That's my sound, right? I can make it perfectly.
That's true. Maybe that's what makes it so desirable to have that, is that you can't actually just make the sounds. Because even when I was streaming, I was doing it back. You almost can't help it.
Yeah.
One of those happy, funny accidents that kind of became a feature.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know, like, how did this all start? Like, whose idea was this? Like, tell me about the genesis of this game.
Sure, I'll explain it up until the point that we started on this project. Basically, in high school, me and my brother were in a programming class together, my older brother Colby, which Devin mentioned. So technically this game is kind of me and Colby's brainchild. It's this weird game where we decided that instead of a knight, you were going to be a princess. And we had no idea why. You were just going around getting diamonds, because diamonds seemed like a natural thing that you might want to find as a princess, right? And we had a very, very simple version back way early on when I was in high school as a freshman. And we made that. It was fine. We made it in XNA, and it's like, you can go find a video of it online. It's called Princess Dungeon Smasher. And then, yeah, I mean, that was just a regular project. I stopped it. I did a bunch of other stuff. And then about 3 years ago now, in December 2017, I eventually was working in like a whole new system with like a custom engine and whatnot, and I needed to work on a new project. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll go remake that that game called Princess Dungeon Smasher. And then at that point, I started to make a bunch of stuff. And then I started talking with Devin, and he has a bunch of ideas for things. So we had like many nights of brainstorming stuff. And then from there, do you want to explain it, Devin?
Sure. Yeah, it was a whole lot of fun to hop in here because I had recently been thinking, I like video games, but I also really like creating things, not just consuming all the time. Just, it's fun to do. And I was talking to Taylor about a game that I wanted to make at the time that I just thought was so cool. I mean, I've definitely changed ideas since then. But and he said, "Oh, well, I'm working on this thing," and I looked at it a little bit, and I thought it was kind of fun. So I hopped into Princess Dungeon Smasher, and basically, it became an opportunity for us to test each other's skills and learn a little bit about programming, about making art, sound effects, and what it was like to kind of make a full game. And that evolved, and Kyle, who was his roommate at the time, hopped in, and we started making more puzzles and having fun, passing them back and forth. And eventually we were like, this is actually like so much fun, and we have so many ideas, and we're getting so into this. What would it be like if we actually tried to publish a game? That was not our idea originally. We were just having fun programming and making a little game for ourselves, right? And it kind of evolved into, yeah, let's do that. Why not? I mean, what's stopping us from trying to publish a game? And lo and behold, here we are today. We've spent countless hours and time and gotten more awesome people on the project. And here's what we've come up with so far. And we're just hoping that what we've been able to enjoy and share with each other people can hop in and enjoy and have a good time with as well.
Yeah, so I started working full-time on the game beginning of this year. I actually lived in Japan for about 3 months, which turns out to be not a great time to live in Japan. I had to come home a little early. But I started working full-time in the start of January. And since then, I've been 100% time working on the game. Before that point, though, I had been obviously doing a regular job and doing this on the side. Everybody else on the team so far has mostly just been doing it as a side project. We haven't, we mostly just split the royalties, the small amount that there are. But it's mostly been a project either for like portfolio building or generally just becoming a better artist or programmer or whatever it is that you want to become. It's been a nice thing to kind of rally around and have an opportunity to add ideas to and to work on. And so it's mostly just been kind of a pet project, a little less like a proper game that we had this idea and said, oh, I think a lot of people are going to buy it, right? It was more like, well, this seems interesting. Maybe we should release it. Maybe we should try and finish it. And if people like it, that's great. But otherwise, we're fine with that. So it's kind of where it's been. It's always been kind of hard because you often talk with a lot of people in the industry that are in the opposite mindset. They're like, oh, I want to make a game company. I want to become an indie game developer. And their goal first and foremost is that. And so their mind is always like kind of working around like how to do that, like what you should do to make that happen. And I tend to be in this other category where it's like, I just kind of like programming. This is kind of fun to make. So
nice. Well, it sounds like, do you have any ideas for what's next? I know you're still working on this, but do you have anything on the horizon?
So far, I think our general consensus is that we don't really plan to necessarily like make this into a company business where we're wanting to make another game similar. Princess Castle Quest has grown to the point that if you really wanted to, we could probably make a sequel. Like there's so many ideas and things that we could do with this game and so many like offshoot things that may or may not make it in the game before we're done or before we kind of have to ship and get back to regular life. But I would love to get into the game industry and work at a company, or generally I just like programming on hard, difficult, interesting problems. But I'm sure that Devin and Kyle and Kayla and everybody else have their own plans to kind of do stuff with it. I don't know, what's your ideas, Devin?
I mean, I definitely I have my own full-time job, so I've never been able to dedicate 100% of my time to making this game. And I think that that's probably going to kind of continue to be the case. I do plan on continuing to work on games. What the next project isn't officially solidified, but at the same time, this project we're planning on releasing February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day is our kind of goal for the 1.0 release right now. Yeah. And after that point, guaranteed, we're going to continue to add some features to it. How crazy those features get maybe depends a little bit on how many people are interested in it and just where our lives lead from here. But that's I guess the current goal on the horizon for me is just making games is fun. Let's continue to make some more, see what we can learn from it. And if I end up getting more involved in something, then that'll be the way it is. But nothing, no grand horizon. I'm going to be the next big indie dev plans on my end.
Yeah, you're
Thought
just gonna.
process. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's just like you're just going with the flow. Like this is what's now, and I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I do find oftentimes when you work on a game for more than a year or two or whatever, right, you start to get to the point that if you were to ever work on another game, it has to be like exactly opposite of the genre you're currently working in. It's like if you work on a puzzle game, you're like, I wish I could just work on an action game, or like, like this thing. It's like you often jump the exact opposite direction, one to the opposite end of the spectrum. And so I feel like if I did make another game, it has to be like something completely different, right? Like something entirely different than what we're currently working on. But I do want to, after February, I probably will work on trying to port the game to Switch, on the side as I work at another job probably. And then hopefully that will go through and we'll be able to ship it on the Switch as well. So that's our main hope.
And then cross our fingers, maybe we'll get it on mobile as well.
Oh,
that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm a big Switch player, as you can see. So I love it when things are, go back and forth, and then you can reach a whole different audience too. So
we do think in general the audience we want to reach is probably a lot more on Switch and mobile than on PC on Steam. So we probably would be able to sell the game better if we did proper marketing stuff right on Switch than we would be able to sell it through Steam. So
yeah. So what for each of you, what has been your favorite part of the process?
I don't know, Devin. What do you think?
Oh man. Honestly, there are so many things that were so fun. It's the discovery, I guess. In a one word, it's discovery. Every step of the road as we've tried to do something new and been able to actually accomplish it, and seeing that come through has just been so exciting and elating for me. I mean, I don't know if you feel this way too, Taylor, but it's, we start out with this little project with some basic art and just like a few types of artwork on the screen. And then we've slowly been adding more artwork, and we added decorations initially. That was like one of the big steps we added, is instead of it all just being just a diamond that you pick up and a box that you push, all of a sudden there's things that aren't about pushing and stuff. You've got plants and pottery and statues kind of decorating around. And that felt really big. And then, go from there. And we added in music and sound effects, and oh my gosh, wait, our game has sound, and that's like a whole new layer. And just seeing it actually release on Steam and being able to go to a page that you've created this game, and there's this page that you've written stuff on, and it's up and other people can view it. I mean, it's just this whole it's amazing, this discovery and trying new things and actually seeing it come through. It's almost like when you go from cooking and you say originally all you can do is barely boil water, and then you slowly learn how to make yourself like a creme brulee or something, and just learning that process and knowing that you've done that and it looks so good, even though it's not perfect, you can just be proud of it.
I do feel like it's a very similar answer for me. I feel like the discovery is, but it's also kind of that discovery of what's possible, or like what kind of options you have as a game developer. I remember one of the feelings I remember distinctly as a kid playing games was when I started getting into programming side of things, right? I would make projects that were like, oh, this is a platformer, right? Like I did the collision on it, and so you can jump around, and that's great. And a lot of people have done that. But I always I had that itch to get to the middle of the game development. Like, oh, how do you implement your dialogue system? How do you keep track of the save game? How do you all that middle stuff that you really have to have a game backing it to make it really worth your time? I always kind of wondered how all that stuff was done. So I feel like getting to that point, where you're in the middle of all of the gameplay code and everything that needs to happen in the game needs to start coming together. I feel like all that stuff is extremely interesting to me, but it also, you find certain things that you didn't really intend to make, but you find hilarious, or you find kind of beautiful. Like I often really like taking screenshots of weird bugs with the graphics, right? Where it's like you try and render something and it shows up on screen. You're like, wait, what? Like, what did I do? And it's like, you look through it and you're like, oh, that's funny. Okay, messed this up, right? But it's like, it's kind of weirdly beautiful in a way. It's like the computer made this weird thing that you kind of told it to make, but you didn't really expect it. So it's kind of that discovery, like the things that you make and can make that are kind of exciting. So
I love that. I love both of your guys' answers. That's super fun. On the flip side of that, I would ask both of you what the biggest challenge, what the most frustrating part of this has been for you guys.
I feel like, see, there's one thing of like, what's the hardest thing? But I feel like my answer to that is mostly like, oh yeah, this thing that I kind of enjoyed making, right? That the hardest thing, I think the most frustrating thing has maybe been that you look around at the indie game industry nowadays and you see like thousands of games, right, that are being made and coming out and that sort of thing, right? And it kind of feels most of the time like it's not a fair world in the sense like the amount of time I put into it is going to be reciprocated, right? Like the nicety of the game is not necessarily equal to how well people are going to discover it and be able to enjoy it, right? And so I feel like that's probably the most frustrating thing, but it's also not entirely like unfair. It's mostly a matter of kind of forcing myself to grow. So that's where it's like, you know, when you're trying to make yourself a better person, it's often super uncomfortable. And I have never done any sort of management before, any sort of business or legal stuff before. I've never done any marketing before. So it's like all these things are like, every time I sit down and make myself do them, it's like, oh, I hate this, right? But they are probably good things for me to do, right? Like I appreciate them more. I'm a little bit better at them. Even if I get hired as a programmer later, if I'm talking to a marketing person, I can relate to them, right? I know how hard it is to get things out there and how much time it takes, right? So.
Awesome. Devin?
Time. Absolutely. One word, time.
Yeah.
Time is the enemy. Time is the thing we hate. We all want more time in the day. We all want more time outside of work to be able to work on our passion projects. We want more time to complete these awesome ideas that we have, but realize that either we won't have time to do them at all, or we don't have time to do them as well as we'd like, right? And that's honestly the thing I probably hate the most is just time. Why can't time just slow down a little bit and let me do everything that I want to do? All the dreams need to come true, right?
I think I often have said I'm not an infinite time machine. like it's like, oh, we have like 100 ideas, and it's like there's always cool ideas. Like we should do that. Why hasn't that been done yet? And it's like I've been doing other things that are also good ideas. Right? So it's funny how much, even though we're not beholden to a publisher, there's still a certain amount of like a feeling of like the ball rolling and like things that we want to get done. And like, I can't just decide to work on a small piece of it for 3 months and not have any like downsides to that, right? Like there's other things that aren't getting done during those 3 months, right? So no matter how small or how, non-strict your schedule is, I feel like it's always frustrating how long it takes to do stuff.
I think the other thing is, I've heard this expression before. I don't agree or like the sound of it, but the literal expression is killing your babies. I've heard artists talk about that before, but it's the idea that this precious thing that you came up with, that you created, that you thought of, you have to accept that it's actually not the best idea in the world, that it's not going to work, and be able to get rid of it, set it aside, not include it in the game, right? And it's just the reality of not having enough time.
Yeah, can you tell us some of your dead babies that you've had to let go of?
So Devin being the idea guy, obviously, we often talk about like so many cool ideas. Like we had been playing Terraria, the newest Terraria update, like a few months back, right? Mm-hmm. And they have like the corruption and stuff that spreads, and we're like, what if we added like rainbow spreading corruption or whatever to Princess Castle Quest, where like certain puzzling mechanic where it would spread to things next to it, right? And it's like that may still happen, but like there are 40, 50 other items that are just as cool that obviously we can't do all of them. So there's so many things that are probably soon to become dead babies, right? Or we really want to put them in, it'd be great, but it's just a matter of like which ones are the best and which ones you have time for. Yeah. Are there any specific ones that you miss, Devin, that you feel like should go in?
Well, I think coming down to the time crunch, I mean, we're talking about February 14th. That's kind of less than 3 months out. The big ones, and I love all of these, and we're going to have to kill at least one of them, is we want to have moving platforms. We want to have multi-sized blocks. So instead of it being, a single block, you could think of like Tetris blocks, and being able to push around Tetris blocks is way more interesting puzzle-wise than a single box, right? We want to add multi-floors so that instead of there being just a single map, single floor, you can go up and down a layer. And at this point, I don't know if we're going to be able to fit all those in and still actually make all the levels that we want to create to have an end game. And, we want to have, right now, you save up diamonds and you actually can buy your castle in game, and that's not the end. because now you can go into your castle and you find out, well, you bought a castle, but it's empty. And so now you need to actually buy with diamonds and stuff, furniture, and you can decorate your castle and unlock different areas. And I wanted to add like, of the different songs in the game, maybe like a jukebox you can get. You can go talk to the jukebox and it can cycle through all the different music in the game. You can just choose to listen to a specific song, and all these fun extras. We want to add different characters that you could play as, that move differently and act differently. So then you can go back through the different levels and actually have a totally different person outside of the princess that kind of pays an homage to other puzzly indie games, right?
I would love to have a Steven from Steven Sausage Roll. Have you guys heard of that game?
Mm-mm.
Okay, it's definitely my favorite puzzle game and possibly my favorite game in general. But it looks absolutely like objectively terrible as far as the 3D games goes, right? But it has really interesting movement mechanics where you have this fork in front of you and you have to rotate before you can move in that direction. And if there's something in the way of the fork, you can't rotate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like kind of this weird movement system where you're kind of handling this fork in front of you. And it'd be great to have that in Princess Castle Quest. It's just kind of a random character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or something similar to that.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, Devin, I'm starting to understand why they call you the idea guy. That was a whole
just
flow.
the tip of the iceberg.
Honestly, if we wanted to, we could look through the Trello list. There's literally hundreds of items on there that we could go, oh yeah, that's a cool thing. And oh yeah, this one.
Yeah.
I haven't even gotten into the weapon and monster systems and electricity and magnetism and
Whoa.
Wow.
Sam Hip Official in chat said, with the dead babies, yeah, we have to do that in music too, and then go back to the dead baby graveyard to use them for other projects. So
there you go. That's true.
you guys
I suppose my long-term plan with Princess Castle Quest is I want to have something that I can just kind of keep in my back pocket as something I can toy with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've always done this as a programmer in general. It's like I'll make something solely for the purpose of being able to toy with it, right? Like I'll make a Pong clone and then I'll like add stuff to it, right? And I feel like even if the game is officially released, I'll probably come back to it every now and then and try adding certain mechanics or doing certain things or making new puzzles. So I am kind of excited for that long term. Like I just have this little random thing I can mess around with, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because you guys have so many ideas, and when you release a video game, I mean, you're seeing this a lot now. People add DLCs or they have new version updates and they have new features, and it'd be really cool to see you guys do that with your game.
I think if it went well enough and we have, whether it be we can actually make it viable for an actual job or even just on the side, right? If it's fun enough and things that it's something we want to work on still, we probably will. Like we're still excited to do things with it. I don't really feel like I have to, the minute it's shipped, it's like that's it, that's done. Like I said, I'm going to try and port it to Switch, and then I'll probably come back to actually doing more mechanics on it, more puzzles on it, and that sort of thing. And if that turns into something that actually is worth the time, then I'll definitely work on it. If not though, I'll definitely work, like he said, working on another project with these ideas is definitely a thing that happens. You're like, oh, I didn't get to do that. I want to try and do that in this next project, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you guys have a lot, big graveyards, so you have a lot to choose from for sure. Yeah.
We did actually, we did a game jam recently for the GMTK game jam. And we actually used the editor from Princess Castle Quest to make the levels for that game. So we used the level file format that you can make with Princess Castle Quest, and we just said like, oh yeah, the princess is like the starting point for this train, because it was about this train that was like going down these rails, right? It's like, oh, this bush is the bush in the other game, right? And oh yeah, so we just kind of mapped like the stuff that you can make in that editor to this other game, and I feel like we'll probably do that a lot. We actually did that early on. We had a Bomberman mode, where you played around as princesses that placed down little peaches that would explode and they would kill the other people, right? And so you ran around and the levels were created. It was all in the same system. It was the same artwork, right? It's just an entirely different game built on a grid, right? So it's kind of fun to take that work and make it go work for you, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about your level creator? I don't think we've touched on that yet.
Sure. Do you want to explain it, Devin?
Sure, I'll start and you can add stuff in. So yeah, level creator is kind of one of the main focuses in the game from the beginning. Like that was really, we wanted to make puzzles for each other to solve. And so Taylor went in and he made a level creator in the game. And then we thought, well, if we can use this, why can't anyone else? So we just made it part of the normal game. So anybody that gets the game can make their own levels. And technically, every single level that you're making, maybe I shouldn't tell you this, but still, every single level that you're playing in the adventure, you could make yourself if you really wanted to. It is all available. It's not like there's anything that we hide from you that we use secretly. when we create these levels for you to play on your own. And so we just wanted to leave all the tools available to people. And that's really been a big part of how we developed the game, because we may come up with all these cool ideas, but if they're cool ideas that would be hard to put in an editor for other people to understand and use themselves, then that also ends up in our little graveyard, right? Because it's not going to work. It's not part of our vision for the game, for what we want to do. We want it to be accessible and for you to be able to use it in the editor. So the editor includes all the tools you need to basically recreate the levels of the game. And it includes the ability for you to share those levels. And we're working on a website and a server right now so that you can actually upload those and download them and share them easily. But for right now, you can still share them. You just have to physically pass the level that you created as a file over to someone, whether it be some file sharing process, however you want to do that. It's just a picture file with the code embedded behind it. And then you just drag that file onto your game and drop it, and a little notification at the top says, we just added level so-and-so, and you can go to your downloads and you can play that level. And that's been so much fun. I mean, we've just done that back and forth with each other as we've been making levels. We just pass stuff back and forth. And
yeah, we actually started a kind of small level design competition amongst ourselves, mostly to encourage ourselves to make levels. So we'll actually, every 2 weeks or so, we'll start a new contest where we choose a mechanic theme and a decoration theme, and you have to use that mechanic and try and decorate in that theme. But there's also like a template level where you have to make something inside a certain shape. You can add walls, but you can't delete the walls that are already placed, right? So it kind of restricts you. And that restriction kind of gets us to actually like come up with really cool stuff. So we have I don't know, it's probably something like 50, 60 levels now that are just kind of these weird ideas that we came up with during this the level creation contest. And you can actually go onto our Discord and download those and play those, even with just the demo, right? The demo has the entire editor in it. There's a couple things that we locked just to make it a little bit enticing to get the entire game, but the demo is mostly some example puzzles that you can play in the first adventure level. And then what we hope is that people can download the editor for free and make their own levels and play everybody else's levels for free. So that's been a big focus. I feel like the main reason we went down this path is, like Devin said, I made an editor because we had to have something to make the levels with, right? But I've always been, as a kid, I've always loved any game that I've played that allows you to create things like Age of Empires, or Morrowind has the construction sets, or things like that. Trackmania was a big one that I played, right? And so any game that does that, I've always loved way better. I always feel like it's never a downside. As much as you might feel like, oh, the editor is all complicated, people aren't going to understand it, and it's like a kind of a feature creep kind of feel, right? Like I'm going to have to polish it super nice, right? Even if it's not polished, even if it's like the worst editor ever, and you have to like learn all this specific information to use it, I feel like it's always a cooler thing to be able to do it. And it also, like, that's kind of what inspires me to get into games. Like the first thing that I did was like programming a game was the Elder Scrolls construction set, like trying to figure out how that thing worked and trying to do weird scripts in that, right? So I do feel like, everything I ever put in the game for my own purposes is available. It's like there's no reason to turn it off. It's nice to hide it maybe so it's not confusing, but like you can go turn on all these visualizations for like the frame rate and like the memory being used, and like you can edit the cutscenes, you can edit the replays. There's a bunch of different tools that I've made to help us get stuff done. It's not just level creation, but the level creation one is the one that we hope people kind of latch onto and make stuff with and share. So
That's cool. I was going to ask if you were going to open up maybe those competitions to your players too.
They are open. Yeah, we actually just don't have that many
thinking.
people joining us, but it's more just a matter of kind of onboarding people. What we need to do is help people understand how to use the editor a little better. So having a proper tutorial in the game, having a little bit easier to read various things and some information. We're working on a Wikipedia basically for the game to give you all the information about like all the different options for all the entities and what they do and how to use them and that sort of thing. So hopefully as we get some of that more of that information out, more people will be able to kind of get on board and learn how to make stuff a little bit faster.
We have had a few people that aren't part of our dev team make some levels, and those have always been a lot of fun. And we play all of them, and we give them little ratings. Usually we submit them on Discord is where we're doing it. So we'll play it, we'll rate it, give it a little heart and a thumbs up. And if we were able to 100% the level they made, so get everything, solve everything, then we give it an ace symbol, right? So we really love people making stuff, and if you make a level, we will play it. There's a challenge to anyone listening here.
I will definitely be very appreciative if anybody makes a level. I'm always like, yes, like new people. I remember the first time I had Devin make a level in Princess Castle Quest. There's one thing where it's like I make a mechanic and I make a level in it, and it's like, yeah, great, it does what I expect, right? But there's a wholly different feel to like, I add a mechanic to the game and then Devin runs with that and comes back with a level. I'm like, whoa, I didn't realize that was a thing, right? Like, it's so cool to like make a thing and then have it come back around with like new stuff, right? Like somebody else took it and did their own idea with it. So I feel like it's often true that like, you can kind of get used to a certain person's style of making a level, and they have certain ways of going about things that generate a certain kind of level. And then when you get somebody new making a level, you're like, whoa, like I didn't even realize that this would be a good idea, right? Like now we can do this, or oh yeah, we could design things that way. So I love having new people touch it. And again, that's why it's fun to release the editor, because it's like, you often see like Skyrim, for example, has like, twice the size map is a free mod that you can download that like recreates all of Morrowind or something, right? And it's like better than the original people making it. But the reason for that is that there's just so many people in the world and you are so few people, right? So you might make an amazing system, but you can never explore it entirely unless you like try and get it out to a large number of people that are better at exploring it over time, just based off the fact that there's so many of them, right?
Yeah. I was gonna look up your Discord server and drop it in the chat. It is public, right?
Yes, I can get the link if you want.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, go ahead and drop that in the chat for us.
We're very active on our Discord. We're constantly posting new screenshots, new little levels to try, update notes, just chatting in there, We'll put down games that we find that are similar or interesting to our game in a similar games link, and it's we really enjoy getting on there. So yeah, come say hi if you want.
Yeah, if you have any questions or suggestions for the game, we're always here. So
nice. I do have to ask, Piggy Bank Studios, where does that name come from?
I have a piggy bank.
Oh my gosh!
This is the egg. The chicken, or the thing that came before this was actually the name. It actually comes from, we had Princess Dungeon Smasher as the title for the game, and we wanted to make a shorter title, so we started coming up with the names. One of the threads that we went down was trying to come up with names that were 2 P letters together, or just at least interesting P words, right? And piggy bank was an interesting word that I found, and then at some point it was like, okay, yeah. Sounds like for legal reasons, it'd be nice to have an LLC. So I got to make something. I've got to name that LLC. So it's got to be semi-unique. And I don't know. I just kind of went through it. And I was like, Piggy Bank Studios. Yeah, that's fine. Right? It's great, right? Like, it's kind of a nice little unique. It kind of feels right. I feel like there are some connotations to like pigs and just like a piggy bank or in general. And I'm like, it's not quite perfect, but I do find it to be kind of a fun name, and it's been kind of nice to have around. So I feel like that's the origin story. I don't know. Was there anything else that do you remember how we came up with Piggy Bank in general, Devin, as far as name ideas go?
I'm sitting here trying to remember myself how that actual name came about, and I'm actually drawing a blank.
Yeah, but that's the basics of it. It's just that it was maybe potentially going to be a name for the game. Turns out we went with a 3-word name that's still super long and hard to remember, but it's at least a little more descriptive of the goal of the game. So.
Yeah, it's weird when you say like pigs and princess. Like, for some reason, I have a connection in my mind, and I can't really tell you why. Yeah. I'm wondering if it's like in folklore or something that I'm making that connection, but
maybe there's also like a piggy bank is something you put your money into, and she's saving up money to buy her castle. So it kind of goes. That's why it kind of works. But yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things where you just kind of come up with one day, and then you need a name, and it's like that works, right? Like that sounds nice.
I sure know that.
Maybe influenced by the Muppets and Miss Piggy.
Yes, that's I was.
Might be it. Yeah.
Cool. Yes. Well, do you guys want to leave us with anything?
I don't know. If you guys are interested in programming, you can watch me on Twitch. I do programming streams. I was just talking to Emmy and Emily here that I feel like a lot of people that watch Twitch don't really know that people program online, but that's a thing that happens.
Devin, do you have anything for us?
Nothing extra to really plug. Just we're making a game. We hope if you guys are interested, you hop on and join us. We'd love to say hi and love to share puzzle ideas and levels with you. So.
Yeah.
I will say thank you to Emmy for playing the game.
Yeah,
it's always
I loved it. Thank you. Yeah.
It's always super enjoyable for us, partially for like game testing reasons, like just seeing somebody live play it is a huge win. But it's also just very satisfying at the end of the day. Like, you've done so much time into these levels, and then seeing somebody like you always find interesting ways to solve the puzzles, and I'm always just like, we've never seen somebody do that before. Like, every new person you get playing the game, you're like, whoa, I guess that is technically a way to solve that puzzle, right? It's not always super like game changing. It's like, oh, that works just fine, but it's just funny how, you know, you can't just play the game yourself and expect it to go the same way for everybody else. So I definitely am very grateful for everybody that's played the game. But.
Yeah. Well, thank you both so much. I have a little plug to do at the very end here. Game Raven here on Twitch. As you know, we are not affiliates yet. We're very new. Our site just started about 2 months ago, and we have some really fun things in store for us, including some possible charity events. But we can't do that unless we're affiliates. So if you can, please, please, please hit that follow button and follow us, and stay tuned for all of the exciting things here at Game Raven. So with that said, I am Puppet Master N, and this is the wonderful Emerald Rays. Both of us are also here on Twitch. And yeah, thank you guys for joining us. This was Princess Castle Quest by Piggy Bank Studios. And you can catch this on Steam. And its release date is February 14th, which is Valentine's Day.
February.
Yes.
February 2021.
Yes. Shooting for February. Yes. So stay tuned for that. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you another time.